personality that is projected when you are becoming adult. But of course, as I mentioned also in our discussion previously, um, his student contradicted him because his student Eric Erickson actually mentioned that personality cannot be developed only from 0 to 7. Personality is going to be transformed and developed up to your lifetime. That means to say, from womb to tomb, or from the time you are going to be born and the time that you're going to die. So if you're going to look at his stages of personality, he mentioned 8, while Sigmund Freud mentioned only 5. Okay? So basically, what we are discussing right now is about their opinion about what they mentioned in terms of the discussion of personality. Now, remember, if we are going to recall, Sigmund Freud mentioned that personality is made up of 3 structures: the id, ego, and superego. Okay? So, what is the meaning of this? And how and what will these 3 structures of personality contribute, or how did they contribute in the development of our personality? So we try to review, no? In Sigmund Freud's theory, the first structure that we have, of course, is pertaining to individuals' animalistic desire that caters on biological drive and immediate gratification, pleasure orientation. That is the id. So this is similar to animals, no? Whatever we have with animals, whatever the animals do in order to survive, this is similar to us. It caters on our biological drive for immediate gratification. It operates on pleasure principle, right? Now, another structure of personality that we can take note of is uh, ego. Now, ego operates on the reality principle. This is the one that is being displayed. This is the one that is seen by other people. The rational, negotiating, decision-making part of personality that is always visible to other people. So this is the one that we carry. This is the one that we use all the time. This is the one that is projected. This is the one that can be seen by other people, and that's ego. Of course, ego has been utilized in so many set of words like egocentric, egoistic, egotistic. Now, so in other words, this ego is the thing that can actually be observed by other people. All right. So moving forward, we have the opposite of id, that is operating on conscience. Superego operates on checking our biological drive, our pleasure orientation, because it incorporates values, rules, norms, morality that we receive from the society and, of course, from our parents. Now, what happens is that if you're going to recall the dynamics of personality according to Sigmund Freud, these 3 parts, these 3 structures are working together dynamically, checking one another. That's the reason why we are exposed most of the time to anxiety. Okay? So id tells you to do something, so for ego checks that. It actually asks you, hey, you try to think first, because what you're going to do may not be applicable or may not be allowed by the society. So what happens is that the structure of personality that operates on reality would always be confused, would always actually encounter anxiety. So anxious already. So the reality that the ego says, what shall I do? The ego says, do that, do this. Super ego says, no, don't do that because this is not acceptable. Now here comes your ego that is torn between id and super ego, resulting into the development of anxiety. This is actually what I'm trying to tell you. I think I explained to you already about this last meeting. Now, moving forward, okay, my computer is a little bit slow, yeah. Now, Freud structured personality about taught on warring factions, no? Struggling for control of personality and behavior. Now, these struggles can cause psychological distress that often will result into anxiety. So there is an ongoing war within us. War is never pleasant. War is always unpleasant. That's why every single second of the day, we are confronted with the experience of deciding what to do. Every second of the day, we are confronted with anxiety. That's why every single person encounters anxiety every day. We may not know it just because the anxiety provoking experience may be trivial, but there are experiences wherein the ego is going to decide where it ends up for ego war, fight to control the ego, where the decision may actually be life changing eventually. So that's why if you're going to look on the level of anxiety, we can actually come out with mild, moderate, and severe. Now, mild, it's okay. This is the thing that is actually happening every day. Like, for instance, not waking up in the morning is mild. No? What shall I do? Am I going to wake up? Am I going to go to the bed? Am I going to be late? There are so many things. Or what type of food am I going to eat today? What type of movie am I going to watch today? You see? So the it says, watch one movie. But the super ego says, no, do not watch because it's bloody. Then eventually, ego is going to decide. So the decision making process is actually um, is done by the ego. No? Now psychology view this model as metaphoric most of the time. Most don't see it as the true structure of the mind because so many psychologists are battling are against this. No. Anyway, actually, Sigmund Freud is always controversial as he seems. No. Now, there is always an ongoing conflict. Now, Freud's structure of personality is leading into every conflict every single day and anxiety over unpleasant impulses and thoughts that are occurring every day in our lives. That's the reason why, if there is unpleasant experiences, therefore, this must be reduced. And he termed that reduction or attempt to reduce it unconsciously as defense mechanism. Of course, there is a conscious attempt to regulate it. That's why we have what we call as coping mechanism. Now, coping mechanism is different from defense mechanism because defense mechanism are always a conscious process, while coping mechanism is always a conscious process. Now, what is the meaning of this? What's the difference between the two? Now, when you say coping process, you know what you're doing. Like if you're already anxious, you just go and take a walk. But for defense mechanism is unconscious. The ego tries to protect itself in order to minimize the anxiety that it encounters. Okay? So Sigmund Freud proposed the existence of defense mechanism that keep these thoughts and feelings vanish in the unconscious. We have to remove, we have to forget about all these unpleasant experiences and feelings that we have in our unconscious mind. All right? So we move forward. Okay? Now, these mechanisms usually function as healthy ways to suppress anxiety. That is actually the ultimate goal of defense mechanism. We need to reduce anxiety or we need to suppress anxiety. No? Now, they become problematic only if they prevent the person from effectively dealing with reality. This is the problem. Now, that's why a person may actually develop anxiety disorder because they become dysfunctional already. This little problem that we have every day This little anxiety that we have every day may lead us to dysfunctionality. Now, if we are dysfunctional, we cannot do anything anymore every single day. All the things that we are supposed to do, we do not want to go to school, we do not want to go to work, we do not want to do our assignment, we do not want to go out with the friends. We become dysfunctional. Therefore, you could actually have developed anxiety disorder. This is the problem. Okay? Anxiety overwhelms you. The battle between id and superego is actually winning inside, confusing your ego. So this is usually the present experience that will be brought about by the constant war that is happening inside us. So defense mechanism may be very helpful. Defense mechanism is always very helpful if you have mild to moderate anxiety. But if you're going to have your severe anxiety, then that will be very difficult. You need medications. You need help from other people. That will be our next topic in for this subject, counseling and psychotherapy. So this is always unpleasant, you see. So Sigmund Freud proposed few defense mechanisms that an individual may utilize, that the ego may utilize in order to decrease the effect and influence of anxiety in a person. Like, for instance, rationalization. So what is the meaning of rationalization? This is making excuses and reframing unpleasant events or actions as beneficial or afraid. We always use this. Students always use that, no? Like, for instance, when the professor actually will ask you what happened while you are late, you tend to rationalize. You are going to give your reason why is it that you are late. So rationalization is giving reasons. You rationalize the otherwise negative experience that you have in order to protect your ego, because you think that if you are going to accept that, maybe it will lead you to some sort of problems, no? Maybe deduction from your professor, maybe prejudice coming from other people. So you rationalize so that you may actually think that you can get away from it, no? That is the thing. So in that way, you decrease your anxiety. Okay? Repression is another thing. What is the meaning of this? This is motivated forgetting of unacceptable thoughts and feelings. Every single day, a single human being is thinking of so many things, is experiencing so many things also. Now let's try to proceed with your thoughts. Sometimes an individual may have unacceptable thoughts. Maybe you like this, maybe you like that. You know what I mean? All right? So you do not want to act on it. You do not want to do it because this is not acceptable in the society. So you forget about it. Forget about that. Is it? So you repress. Because otherwise, if you're going to do that, then the action that you may do may actually be not acceptable. It will lead to compromise. Another very basic example is a painful experience that you may actually have. If you are being raped, a person who is raped, this is usually the most difficult situation that you may in. Every single day you're going to think about this in your life. I have counseled so many people who are raped already. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Every single day they are thinking about that. Look at what is happening in the life. If every single day you are going to think about your rape experience, you may not live. You may not want to live. How can you live? So this is exactly the point. Since you need to live, so you try to set aside the negative experience that you may have. Yeah? Forget about it. See, it's motivated forgetting. It doesn't mean to say that you are trying to forget about that experience, but for the meantime, the influence of that particular thinking will just be cast aside. But of course, it will always be coming out in the future because it will be deposited in your unconscious. So that's the thing. If similar experience may actually be encountered by you, then eventually it will surface. Eventually it comes out. Eventually it will create a problem to the ego. All right. So moving forward, let's try to have your regression. Now, what is the meaning of regression? This is going back, retreating from your childhood days. That is a return to juvenile behavior, a return to, let's say, childhood behavior. Like, for instance, you're very worried about your answer when your professor actually calls you to answer in the recitation. Sometimes the student may bite their nails. You see? It can be a mannerism that we have, but this mannerism may reduce our anxiety. So that's regression. Or if you have encountered something that is threatening your ego, you may retreat at home and take a fetal position like this. You see? In that case, you regress because you assume the fetal position. So going back to your childhood and juvenile behavior. So that's actually the meaning of regression. So that will make comfort to your ego because your ego could actually be taken. No? Now, take note of this as we have in regression. So this aphorism no, reads like this. You're only young ones, but you can be immature forever. A level of immaturity. And the other people are actually saying there is always a child in us. No, all people may be children sometimes, and they can comfort. They can take comfort from the childhood behavior that me actually have. You may be wondering your parents are actually playful or playing around once in a while. That's regression. You know, they are actually assuming juvenile and at the same time childhood behaviors. Now they could be masking some of anxiety provoking experiences that they may actually have. Maybe they are thinking about money. They're thinking about where to get your tuition fee. So these are all things that may initiate some sort of defense because your ego could be threatened. All right, moving forward, any questions so far? Do you follow? All right, we have denial, no? Now, the denial is a refusal to acknowledge a problem. This is denying, outright denying of what happened. You see, for instance, somebody called you because you are here, you are studying in United Arab Emirates, and maybe you came from Oman or you came from Bahrain. You see, then you receive a phone call coming from a known number, and all of a sudden, the person on the other side will tell you your mother is dead. Now, of course, you are threatened. Your ego is threatened. You do not accept the fact. You do not want to accept the fact. So you will always say, no, I was just talking to my mother moments ago. It cannot be. Mother cannot be dead. So that's the thing, right? Or maybe another one. No, I'm going to say, during your final examination, you saw your mark and your mark says F. No, that cannot be because my professor said that I passed his subject. So that's the thing. You are refusing to acknowledge the problem that you may actually have. That is denial. Then we have displacement. This is another defense mechanism that is very useful to preserve the integrity of the ego. All right? The diversion of an unacceptable thoughts or impulse from its true target or to a least threatening one. No? Like for instance, there is something you really would like to shout out someone just because that person may could have actually done something to you. So instead of shouting in front of that person, you turn your attention to the wall and punch the wall. That's displacement. You are rechanneling, diverting the unacceptable thoughts or impulse from its true target to a less threatening one. I'll give you another example. You see, you tend to be angry with someone. So the thing is, you are holding a cup. So instead of hitting that someone, you try to dispose of the cup or throw away the cup. Then after that, you will be okay. That is displacement. This is very helpful, no? In order to preserve the integrity of your ego, right? Moving forward, we have the reaction formation, showing thoughts or feelings extremely opposite of one's true ones. See, so showing your thoughts or feelings extremely opposite to one's. So according, let's say Shakespeare mentioned in his play Hamlet, no, the lady that protests too much, but I don't think so. Methinks, all right. So this is actually running on the opposite of what you are actually acting. You are protecting, you are protesting, but in your mind you should not be protesting. So that's the thing. That is the meaning of reaction formation. All right, moving forward. Do you follow? Sublimation, all right? Sublimation, sublimation is one of the healthiest defense mechanisms that we use, no? So this is rechanneling your sexual or aggressive energies into acceptable and pro-social behavior. See? Maybe you have just deviant thinkings, or maybe you are too aggressive. Now, your tendency, the tendency of a person actually to do something that is creative. Maybe you can write a music, you write a poem, you write books, or you paint. You see, you play guitar, you try to sculpt, you do something that is worthwhile. You create something that's worthwhile. Okay, so that's a very good thing. We use this a lot in our art therapy and psychotherapy. You know, we try to find something that will help the person to divert and channel their energy. You see, this is the one that we have to look for because this is the most positive. You can build around any type of defense mechanism using this sublimation. Okay, sublimation. A lot of people are actually doing that. I'll give you one example. Vincent Van Gogh. See, Vincent Van Gogh is the most famous so far today painter that we know. All right, of course, he was never rich. He was always poor. So what would he do? In order to rechannel maybe his anger to the society, his depression, his frustrations, he would just actually paint. And you know, history would actually tell us that Vincent Van Gogh could paint a lot. Imagine he could come out with so many paintings in a single day. That is the meaning of sublimation. Writers. If you are going to recall so many writers, like the writer of, I forget the author, most of the writers that we know of right now would always write just because they would once in a while be anxious or depressed. You see? So they can write, they can be very creative. Okay? So I'll give you another example. I think J.K. Rowling. If you're going to look at the story of J.K. Rowling, at one point she was divorced, she had no money, she was very poor. So every single day, she was trying to apply for a job, but no job, no company would actually hire. So at one point, she would just sit down in one corner of a restaurant, and she would just write. So she was able to write so many good stories already. Okay, so that's the thing. That's sublimation. Okay, projection is another is always negative. No, attributing one's own undesirable characters or motive to other people. Like for instance, no, if you are if you have gone to a movie house, so the movie house is projecting, no, the source of the movie to the screen. So this is the thing. So in reality, like for instance, you are very uncomfortable in your situation wherein you are committing a lot of mistakes as a manager. You are committing a lot of problems in the office. So what happens is that you project your inadequacy to other people. So you get mad to other people. You say, why is it that you did not come out with this, you did not come out with that, and so on and so forth. You project your inadequacy to other people, attributing your inadequacy to other people. Instead of blaming yourself, instead of attributing the inadequacy to yourself, you look at someone telling that what they're doing is not right. So you're just projecting your inadequacy. All right. So that's one thing. All right. So the work of Sigmund Freud may be a suspect because there is no such thing as very objective studies. No, he just conducted his observation using his individual patient. Every single patient that comes. Sigmund Freud is not a psychologist, by the way. He's a medical doctor, a doctor. He's a psychiatrist. He was training to be a psychiatrist. So definitely, since he was training to be a psychiatrist, he would see a lot of people with mental health problems. So he would observe these people and come out with his idea. So there was no objective study, there was no objective research. He was just basing his idea based on his individual experience. So his evidence was weak. And some of his conclusions likely are very dubious or wrong. No? You cannot come out with something out of your personal observation of your patient. You need to actually to spread your wings. We need to spread out. We need to observe other people also, not only your patients. That's actually what we call as scientific method. His approach to his ideas and to his pursuit would not be scientific at all. That's the reason why a lot of psychologists may not, could not have believed him. No, Sigmund Freud made enduring and useful contributions, though, to psychology, right? Because most of the concepts that we are using up to now came from the idea contributed by Sigmund Freud, right? Scholars would always argue about the extent to which Freud was responsible for formulating theories associated with him. Always very personal. He takes his study personal, not scientific as they should be. He has a very good friend, no, Brewer, and sometimes they would discuss. Actually, Brewer followed him also. See? Now, let's try to look on Freud's legacy. According to him, humans have a mental life that is at least partly unconscious. We are struggling. So he was able to come out also with the definition of our unconscious. According to Sigmund Freud, the mental life of every single human beings may always be dictated by something that is not seen, and that is attributed to his idea on the unconscious, borrowing the term that was used by William James, the theory of the unconscious mind. Okay? The mind that is not conscious. We are unconscious. We do not know what's going on. Something is actually driving us. Something is dictating on us. Something is asking us to do things that we are not in control. Huh? Moving forward, human individuals do have conflicting motives every single day, just because we are driven by our id. You see, if you're going to see, you're going to compete one another. For instance, you have only one slice of cake at home, and everybody wants the cake at home, wants to eat it. You have to you have to have devise a way in order to get the cake. This is our motive. The motive is to get the cake. You go ahead all the time. You want to go ahead. You want to be first all the time. So you devise ways. So this is the thing. Every single individual do have a conflicting motive, because if you're going to consider at home, if you're going to think of one dream or one motivations to do things, so that actually overlaps. You cannot just give away your pie, resulting into conflict. So that's the thing. Accordingly, childhood experiences contribute to the development of adult personality and social behavior. That's why he mentioned that at the age of 7, your personality is totally developed. Your childhood personality, your childhood experiences could have produced your current personality type. This is one of the ideas that we can attribute to Sigmund Freud. Okay, so let us try to look at his legacy again. He's very important. Now, Sigmund Freud mentioned about relationship with people in our family of origin can influence relationship we have with others throughout life. So that's why it's very important that in our family we should always observe very good relationship, because what is actually experienced at home would always be resulting into the influence of our relationship outside our home. If at home you are not open to your parents, outside you may not be open to your parents. If at home you're not very close to your brothers and sisters, maybe outside it will be very difficult for you to find a relationship with other people. So this is actually very important. And if you're going to observe also, this could be true. General, but this could be true. And of course, next is that sexual development has an impact on psychological development. That's why most of the stages of development, according to Sigmund Freud, would always be associated with sexuality. You notice that? Number one, oral. Number two, anal. Number three, phallus, pertaining to genitals. Number three, genital, then latency, right? So these are all pertaining to sexuality. That's why Sigmund Freud mentioned about sexual development. Sexual development, his observation on sexual development do have influence on the creation of his ideas. That's why we sometimes call this theory of personality as psychosexual. But when it comes to the interplay of id, ego, and superego, we always call this theory as psychodynamic. But almost the same. Huh? Psychosexual, psychodynamic. Okay? Dynamic means to say there is an interplay on the different structure of personality, like the id, ego, and superego. Psychosexual, because sexual experiences and your sexuality may actually influence your social life. All right? So that's the contribution of Sigmund Freud. Other psychologists may not take him seriously, but there are actually followers of Sigmund Freud that are existing right now, who exist right now. We call them psychoanalysts, psychoanalytic members or movement, part of psychoanalytic movement. Psychoanalysis and psychoanalytic movement was created by Sigmund Freud. No? So let's try to look into the development of psychology after Sigmund Freud. Now, there is no doubt Sigmund Freud is very important in psychology because he was able to lay down the foundation. He could never be perfect. At no point that he was perfect, because his ideas sometimes may be wrong, but at least it laid the foundation for other psychologists who comes after him to come out with their opinion, disputing the claim of Sigmund Freud. That's why we call these psychologists who came after him as neo-Freudians. No, so neo-Freudians. These are the term that we. This is the term that we use for the psychologists who followed after Sigmund Freud. Not necessarily a follower of Sigmund Freud, but psychologists who came after Sigmund Freud. We have Karen Horney, the first of the well-known female psychologists that we know of. No? So accordingly, Karen Horney adapted some parts of Sigmund Freud's theory, and of course, modified others, and at the same time rejected others. No? Now, Karen Horney believed that Freud exaggerated the role of sexuality in human behavior and motivation. Now, he didn't like, because Karen Horney is a girl, is a female, so definitely he didn't like his idea on sexuality in human behavior and motivation, right? And of course, he claimed that Sigmund Freud misunderstood women's motivations and, of course, the dynamics of family relationship. No, so that's his claim. If you're going, but most of the time, if you're going to look at the patient of Sigmund Freud, most of the time he would always be catering the need of male patients. That's why. Okay. So moving forward, after Karin Horney, we have Adler. Sigmund Carl Jung, no? Another one. We go to Carl Jung. Okay. Uh, Carl Jung put a greater emphasis in the quality of experience and need for spiritual meaning of life. Now, Carl Jung emphasized psychoarchaeology, emphasized the collective unconscious. No, Carl Jung put a greater emphasis on the continuity of human experience and need for the spiritual meaning in life. This is actually very important. No, so he was the first one who generated the term archetype. In psychoarchaeology, we have to look into the different archetypes that we have. And Carl Jung identified at least four archetypes that may influence the personality of every single human being. Now, Carl Jung proposed the existence of our collective unconscious, no? Reflecting the cumulative experiences of our ancestors. We are part of our ancestors. The thing, our consciousness will be a part of the collective consciousness that belongs to our history, that belongs to our ancestors, that belongs to the past. And of course, Carl Jung proposed archetypes. No, these are some manifestations in terms of figures and themes that emerge repeatedly in the history and across cultures. And according to Carl Jung, there are four types of archetypes that we have. And these are all the ones that are committing or making part of our collective consciousness and unconscious, right? Another very important neo-Freudian is Adler, no? We have Adler, Alfred Adler. He founded the School of Individual Psychology. Now, what is actually the importance of individual psychology in Alfred Adler's psychology? Individual refers to understanding the whole person, holistic. We are going to look into the holistic part of a person. We just not look into the sexuality. We do not just look into social development of a person. We are going to look into the collective, into the holistic nature of a single human being. No? In contrast with the partition model central in Freudian framework. Now, in the framework of Sigmund Freud, we are going to look into a single individual in terms of sexuality, but Alfred Adler disagreed, so he mentioned his individual psychology, holistic psychology. That means to say we have to look into multiple facets of an individual. So that's actually the difference between Alfred Adler and Sigmund Freud, right? So now Adler proposed that humans naturally seek excellence and fulfillment and strive for superiority. We have the capacity to be superior. We have the capacity to be productive. We can create our master plan for achieving this. We call that as style of life. Every single person may always attribute the pursuit now according to Alfred Adler. Whatever you have dreamed, like for instance, I would like to be dentist 5 years from now. You are always engaging in in Adlerian psychology because you are laying down the foundation, the master plan. What are you going to do to become a psychologist or to become a dentist? You have to study very well and so on and so forth. This is laying down the foundation, laying down the master plan so that you can actually achieve your dream. That is a part of your struggle to be superior. Now, there is another part. The moment that you have not achieved your superiority, you may develop inferiority complex because you see, you may not always become superior. Alfred Adler mentioned about every single person has the capacity. That means to say a drive to be superior. Your capacity, capability to be superior. So you have to do something every step of the way to achieve that. That's why you create a master plan. If you do not have a master plan, you cannot be a superior. You will be an inferior. No? Now people fail, suffer from an inferiority complex. This is, of course, an exaggerated feeling of inadequacy. No, there are so many people like that. Like for instance, you can always look into the divide between the rich and the poor, between the ruler and the ruled in our family, between the maid and the household members. So this is the thing, no? All right. Uh, in continuation to Alfred Adler, he proposed, no, you see, that healthy, striving for superiority also involve concern for the welfare of others. You are not just actually going towards the improvement, self-improvement. You're always looking into the improvement of other person also. As you improve, you contribute in the improvement of other people. That is striving for superiority. That is the meaning of Adlerian psychology. That is very important in that case. That is very important that we know of in individual psychology. Every person has the capacity to become what they want to be. As long as you follow your master plan, you create a master plan, you follow your master plan. The moment you fail to create a master plan, the moment you fail to follow your master plan, then you fail. You develop inferiority complex in that case. Now, psychologically healthy people have social interests. They have the capacity to go out. They have the capacity to help other people. They have the sense of belongingness and identification with other people. So they think about that they are part of the community. They think that they are contributing enough to the community among others. No? Psychopathology involves the setting of inadequate goals, a faulty style of life, and lack of social interest. This is very important. Now, I will stop here because I have exams at 1:30. I need to approve those who are actually coming in examination. Now, is there any questions of any question? Do you follow me?
Yes, doctor.
All right. So we are going to meet same time on Monday also. I will be sending this to your email, and at the same time our next topic on counseling and psychotherapy. I hope I can finish this next week. No, so for the time being, the coverage of your CE2 will be personality. This one, counseling next, and then maybe include abnormal psychology. Okay. So if you have no question, then we're good to go. All right. For your attendance, please type in your ID numbers in the message board since this is recorded. Have a good day, everyone.